Streetwise Nation, what's really good? Buckle up for another episode of the Streetwise Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Now, I filmed this one a while ago, but it's still got a ton of great value. With us today, Melanie Rice with CMC Marketing and the Be More Mindful podcast. She talks about marketing your company, adding value to your clients, creating a vision, building a story, but most importantly, we talk about how our mindset affects our trajectory and how it affects our success. Grab your popcorn, buckle up. This is a good one. Let's go. I was just telling you that listening to your podcast was very impressive because me on this journey, I have struggled and I have just tried to kind of start from scratch. Tell me about your experience in podcasting, because you were saying this was not your first show.
No. So I appreciate that. When you're, and I'm so glad you said that, because that is, you've heard on our show, we talk about how we want to take the gloss off of entrepreneurship. And really that goes deep into any project. I feel like when we are seeing things that are well done, we see that they're well done, but we don't understand all the back end work that gets done until you go to try to do it. And like you said, episode 20 is 100x better because you've probably changed dozens and dozens of little things. So when you said, hey, ours is great, I so appreciate that compliment, because we still feel very much like we're learning all the time. Wow. And it was a big stretch for us, but you're also seeing two women who have produced multiple podcasts before.
Okay.
Smaller
so there we
scales, go. Beginners, but you're not even seeing the beginning of our beginning.
So tell me about that.
A mutual friend of her and I that we all met out networking, and she tried to introduce us a year and a half ago. She said, hey, you guys should meet. And we said, yeah, okay. So we have a phone call. We hit it off. We talk about collaborating, and nothing happens for 6 months. Not a single follow-up. And that same friend reintroduced us again 6 months later because we were both dabbling in the nonprofit space. And so she said, you guys should meet. And I said, you know what? We have met actually. And this time we said, maybe we should meet in real life this time. And we were both going through rebranding experiences. She already had the marketing agency, CMC Marketing company out of Frisco. And I was working in the nonprofit space, but we were both going through rebranding, and we just started spitballing about marketing. We really hit it off. And she said, I have this idea for a podcast. And we started, I was so excited about that. We started talking about it. She said, I'm kind of looking for a co-host. And I said, this is a great idea. And she said, I'm kind of thinking you. So she just threw it out there, and we decided, okay, let's try it. Let's make an effort. We'll keep it really succinct. We met for 1 hour each week, totally on the side, just made the time for it. And our working relationship started, and it started in steps. Every week we showed up for each other. We had an agenda. We did tasks. It was all just kind of built on trust. And we moved forward with it. And we started recording, and an opportunity came up for me to leave my current firm. And she said, so are you interested in a partnership? And I had no idea. She had been really respectful of my working relationships. I'd been really respectful of hers. But an opportunity opened up in her agency for my skill set. And we got a chance to partner together for real.
Oh, that's so cool. I've got a lot of questions because I've never been in that sort of experience before. My background, though, is in nonprofit. Before starting our businesses, that's pretty much where I came up, was working in the inner city nonprofit schools. Yeah, so that has a special place in my heart. But when you talk about you were at an agency and then she started her own agency, what does that actually mean? What are the intricacies of being in or starting an agency? And I'm assuming you were in marketing before as well, correct? Or not correct?
No. My degree is in marketing. So that's the background piece. My degree is in marketing, but all of my relevant experience has been in sales and business development.
Cool.
And that was very much the place I was in. So the firm I was with, they helped companies start their own nonprofits. And so that was kind of the common
Interesting.
Now, same as you, I'd been a volunteer and an officer in several several different charities, one very long-term women's group in Frisco, and she was actually starting a charitable initiative with her marketing agency. So her agency was also growing. She was starting to hire on full-time people and make it a legitimate agency model. And she recognized, she has her lane, and there was a whole inside lane available for someone who really does more sales operations, which is my sweet spot.
Yeah. So you guys would go in a business, I mean, similar to mine. I'm in the home services space, and if I wanted to start a nonprofit branch, you guys would come in and help me facilitate that.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I was doing. And she was kind of almost doing the same thing, like all on her own without the help of anyone else. And so I talked to her about that. It's funny, she was a prospect first.
Nice. Nice. So you were with another agency, and then you met Carolee. You guys worked collectively, and then an opportunity opened up for you to then just completely move over and be with CMC Marketing. And
Yeah,
so, when was
absolutely.
that, and how has that transition been, kind of working full time for somebody that you had that relationship with?
Oh my God. I love that question. That's the question. So the opportunity started to open up back in December. It was one of those, the company was going through a transition. I wasn't sure I wanted to follow them. I'd already been through one in the summer.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
so I thought, okay, they're scaling in a certain direction. I don't know if I want to stay on board. And I opened up to her because we'd had that type of professional
Yeah.
relationship. So I felt comfortable sharing that with her. And that's when she opened up to me and said, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but you're telling me that you're open. So in December, we recognized an opportunity. She said, if you're open to it, everything had really always been gently opening the door and saying, hey, is this right for you? And everything was done very much with intention. And that, when you say, hey, how did that translate? It was the same, actually. I love that we had a chance to meet the way that we did. We just talked over coffee, and we recognized we had totally different journeys up to that point as entrepreneurs, and we had come to so many of the same conclusions, so many. And I thought there's got to be some truth in our experiences that haven't been shared. And that was the origin of the whole podcast. Was it's the podcast I wanted, and she wanted, and we needed when we were starting out. Every other hard fought lesson, I thought, what if we can not take away the total pain, because pain is a good teacher, but
Right.
what if we could help someone accelerate way faster than we did? What if we could remove a wall or two that they don't have to hit, and they can get better because we were available to share a known truth that we had to learn through experience?
The thing that attracted me to your podcast when I saw it was every episode starts with mindset and it's
Yeah.
so cool because this podcast, Streetwise, mindset is so important. I mean, it's everything. And I talk about mindset in just about every episode. How did you guys
That's
get to that? So you wanted to create the podcast that you wish you had had, but you settled on mindset. Was there anything that happened in your lives individually to where mindset was super important for both of you?
Oh yeah. So we recognize that was the fundamental thing that determined all of our experiences and outcomes. That there's a lot we're
Mm.
taught. You need a business plan. We're taught how to do a SWOT analysis. I mean, her and I both came from a background. She's deeply educated. I'm decently educated,
Okay.
and we both also came from corporate backgrounds. So we had a lot of really good training behind us over a decade each in our own corporate spaces, doing a lot of great projects, learning from major corporations, putting a lot of things into practice. And we thought, okay, we're fairly smart, educated, experienced women, and we still hit serious walls. And we thought, why, what is it? And as we had to go and learn, we realized everything we did came back to our mindset, how we succeeded, what we did, how we saw things, and even our approach to some of the tactical things that you're taught that are still accurate. Even those outcomes. You can't just network, right? You have to have an abundant mindset to be able to network in a room full of you. You
No
also
doubt.
have to be able to present yourself authentically when you don't know who you are yet. And that comes down to a mindset. How you
Wow.
approach people, everything is mapped out in design in your mind first. everything.
Yeah, no, that's pivotal. I see that mindset is so important, just like you said, and it can affect you in a positive way, but also in a negative way if you allow yourself to compare to others. If you don't have a sense of abundance and you are scarcity mindset and you get
Mm.
that term commission breath and you're out there and you're just trying to make sales, or you
Right.
don't see the opportunity for creating synergy partners. I mean, I love that you said networking, because so many people in my experience go into those rooms and they're trying to make sales rather than building up ambassadors and synergy partners. And I mean, when I first became aware of you guys, that's a big room that we're in the McKinney Downtown Networking Group. There's almost 100 people in there, and I knew that you did marketing, but it wasn't until I'll and everybody gets caught in these situations where we can be so inwardly focused on what I need in the moment that we miss things. And it's not until we take a step back and look at a bird's eye view of, whoa, there's actually a lot of value by just knowing this person and bringing this person
Yeah.
into my inner circle. So I love, anyway, that's just me gushing about like mindset. I think it's so important and so cool that you guys are hitting that. What's your plan though with building out the podcast, but also the services that you guys provide as a marketing agency? How do those two things coincide, come together, stay in their own lane? What's your thought process around that?
I like that you gave an opportunity for all those things to be possible, because originally, of course, we started it and we thought, oh, this could just be an opportunity to kind of talk about what we do, but really put it as a passion project. And when we became business partners and we pulled it all the way into CMC Marketing Company, we realized, like, okay, well, is this going to be a hanging, participle of the company? Is it going to integrate? Because we specifically, even though we're partners in a marketing agency, we specifically didn't want to pump services and make it about sales and marketing.
Okay.
We wanted to be able to serve those who were thinking about making the jump or had made the jump and were early in their entrepreneur journey. Even though we knew it's applicable to people who've been in it for a long time and we hope they get value out of it, we really wanted to speak to the people we were years ago and serve them. And we thought, well, how does that fit into a marketing agency that really works more with medium sized businesses? Because our agency focuses more on rebranding. We're a branding agency at heart, we're storytellers, and we focus a lot on being able to do, design consulting, website building or rebuilding if it's ugly, as I always talk about in the group,
Sure.
and organic social media management and really content management across brands. So it was all about consistency and being able to show up digitally just as good as you do to your customers, just as much as you do maybe in your storefront or in person when you're networking. And I'm fascinated by that, how that all personally fascinated by how that translates, because it's interesting to think, how do you put the human touch in a
Yeah.
digital space? And that's what we're always trying to do. And I thought, well, how does that tie into mindset really? And do we want it to? And the way it ties in is because the things we talk about are the lessons we've learned that we still apply every single day in our business. And they do tend to creatively feed each other. We get stories all the time from our customers, from each other, from just living the agency life. And we're always going back and remembering, well, how could this serve the next valuable topic we can talk about? And from a marketing standpoint, I think it's great to have something that's just valuable to people. And if that's if that's something we can give away and show just a very different side of ourselves as humans, I don't think it hurts the brand. But it was never really about pumping up CMC. It was
Oh,
always
that's
about
really
serving somebody
cool.
else.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of just consistently adding value to people. And if I can provide as much education to the people, that even if somebody might not want my service because I teach them how to do it themselves, that's not everybody. Somebody's going to realize there's a lot of complexity and expertise that goes into what I do, whatever the field actually is, and they're going to be attracted because, oh wow, this person actually cares to provide that information, so it adds credibility. And
That's right.
there's a lot of different there's so many different avenues and philosophies on building up your marketing and telling a story. But I'm curious, who are your motivations? Is there anybody that might be a little bit bigger than what you guys are doing right now that, maybe you individually or collectively as a team that you want to emulate, that you like, that you pull from? Because I got a million, so I'm just interested in what you guys
There
are
are, I
studying.
mean, and we're always finding new ones. There's some classics that I like to lean on personally that never get old to me, that I can revisit and see with fresh perspectives depending on who we're working with. So I mean, one of our Bibles that we stand on is Donald Miller's Story Branding, because that incorporates some of the his book isn't new, and he says that all the time too. It's not new, but that's why it's great, because it's really fundamental and it's told in a really simplistic way. And I love stuff like that. And I actually like to find other similar size agencies or maybe one step above. There's a really there's one that we found. It's a big agency in New York City, and they have probably the sexiest website I've ever seen.
Okay.
So we try to find things that like make us jealous and get us inspired by things. And there's also a branding agency we found that's woman owned out in San Francisco. So, and it's random things.
Nice.
It's like
Yeah.
us just kind of finding little pockets of people who can stand on their own. And I mean, those are those are obvious ones in the industry, but my favorite people to learn from are our clients every
Really?
time. Yeah.
Okay, elaborate on that a little bit because I was going to go into like the mentor and pulling from other people, but I'm interested to hear what you say.
Um, I probably learn the most from them because they give us the feedback. So
Mm,
it's a lot
okay,
of, we're super intentional about who we onboard as clients. We're not for everybody. Not everybody is for us.
sure, that's
And
good.
we've had the unique pleasure of being able to kind of swim in a lot of different industries. And the common thread with our clients is that they're collaborative. And so we get to basically get a really intimate view of their businesses, all of them. And they're in different industries, different stages. And the things that I now know about restaurants and foam insulation is just unusual for someone
Yeah,
who's never done
wow,
either of those things. But
sure.
I learn, what they're going through. I learn their stories. We start to be able to get a whole big picture, especially because we get to work with people locally, of what is the business environment? What are their fears? What are their concerns? What are the things that actually hang up someone in business? And it's a beautiful insight because we're business owners too. So I like to watch them and figure out, well, where are they and what are they dealing with? How do they do it? Does any of those lessons, do they translate to what we're going through? Does anything we just learned apply to our clients? Because, like you said, sometimes the most valuable thing you can be is simply a resource. And that's why it's great to know lots of people in all kinds of corners of the world and industries and levels of expertise, because you never know who you're going to get to connect and the magic that that will produce.
Amen. I love that you said that. That touched on really the purpose of why I wanted to do this podcast. And in my experience, just being able to pull from a wealth of knowledge and experience from the outside world, I've been able to absorb and level up. And through this, I want to be able to, now that I've been able to get into some rooms, turn around and pull a demographic of people with me that might not have been able to fit. And so it's the idea of consistently learning, consistently growing, taking pieces from, okay, I like that. Dang, you're way better than me there. But if I take that and then add it as a nuance with this, I can actually create something that's special that I can start with and then grow from. Um, oh, that's really good. Or I should say it like this: how do you coach people who want to build their business and build their business's brand, but they also want to build their personal brand? Is there a different strategy that one should take when building up their company's brand and marketing and then their own personal brand and marketing?
It's always about outcomes. Like how you plan that is really about outcomes. Are they separate brands? Are they integrated? Will they be? So that's a big
Mm.
something that's I want to plant the seed with, because it's not a black and white answer necessarily, but what's important is understanding what you're going for. And a big one that really opens up our clients' minds when we do brand consulting is asking them, in 5 years, what do you want to be? Because that's a big one. Because what you're
Yeah.
building now, it's got to be strong enough to be able to handle whatever nimble move you might want to potentially make. If you're going to integrate your personal and your business brands or separate them at some point, if you like them, personally, oh, I can't sustain both, then it makes sense to build it where they can be split or start building them separately now.
Mm.
Me personally, what I'm finding out, and it's taken me years to do this because I was a corporate worker, and it was very, this is business and this is personal. And
Okay.
I've found it's impossible to split them, and it makes me weaker as a person to try to pretend that I'm separate things in any capacity, because I'm not. Especially in sales and marketing, I am one person. I am the brand. The brand is me. They're all the same. And the people that I work with, they're not working with CMC Marketing Company. They're working with Melanie. And I want
Sure.
them to work with me. And I want
Yeah.
to be able to say my agency core values are the same as my personal core values. Because if they're not, what am I doing? I can't do the work long term.
No, that's good. I think, like in my situation, for example, so I'm in franchising. And so we started 8 years ago
Oh.
with a Mosquito Joe franchise. And so doing all the marketing, I mean, I was you go into the networking rooms and, oh, that's the bug guy. That's the pest control guy. And that was
Which is
cool.
great.
It was cool whenever we first got started. But then I started to learn more about the franchising industry and learning more about business and how to delegate and elevate myself so I can work on the business, not in the business. I started reading books, and we started looking at ways to vertically integrate other brands into our bigger business. And so right
Mm.
now we're going to integrate a painting and power washing concept. Okay. And so now I have two separate businesses that some people might see me as the pest control guy. Some people might see me as, okay, now I'm the painting guy, but really I don't see myself as either one. And so I'm starting to get a good feel of it now through Streetwise and through the narrative that I'm creating. But it was such a struggle a couple years ago because I felt like I didn't have a secure understanding of my own identity, and I was just confusing people every time I entered into rooms. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it
So you
does. Yeah,
okay?
because I've been through it too, especially when you network and a part of your life almost becomes public, right? That's your community, and they're there to support you. And if you confuse them, they don't know how to support you. They don't know what they're supporting anymore, right? And and that's really difficult to figure out. Okay, and maybe that's why you're asking, well, should I be a brand versus should my company be a brand? And you know, you become one intentionally or not intentionally. That's the important note there. Is like you
Oh,
are building your own reputation. You're branding whether you mean to or not every time you walk in a
wow,
room.
that's big, and that mindset has helped me to kind of I guess establish myself separately from my businesses. That was kind of the decision that I had to make. Like, yes, I do have
Mm-hmm.
these companies, but how I represent myself, I am streetwise, and I'm going to be doing things and saying things and creating content that puts me in that light. And so it's just taken time, I guess. So I want
Yeah.
to get back to you guys and how you collaborate. How have you defined your roles? When you transitioned over, how has your role stayed the same? Do you have a growth plan? Do you have like a partnership? Are you wearing a million different hats? What's going on over there?
Yeah, we were very intentional in how we structured it, and that's why I give the advice that I do, because we already walked that walk. We already knew what the needs of the business were, and that my skills fit really the next 5 year growth plan of CMC. So we already knew that. But what the individual roles are, what we focus on, that has definitely changed. And that was always meant to. So it's never been a surprise. It's always been we're putting our skills where the business needs it the most. Our growth plan is. the name of that game is sustainable. That's the biggest, most important thing to us, because we want to be able to have our clients long term. We want to make sure that we're growing responsibly, because we've both been a part of projects where people went too fast, they focused on the wrong thing. So we have a lot of bad experiences that are leading us into this good one.
Yeah.
We want to be able to, of course, take on more clients, but also tell more stories, do projects that have deeper meaning to us, be in this community, be a resource to this community, be an expert in our field, and really just be able to do fun and exciting projects that help us grow creatively.
Mm, okay. Have you what have been some of the roadblocks that maybe you didn't expect? Whenever your personalities might have been different, or you get a
Ah,
little intimate whenever you're
that's the one
working
that
day to
I had
day
expected,
together.
actually.
Okay.
um, and one thing that to answer the first question, some of the roadblocks have been, um, I'd probably say our growth. We're trying to grow responsibly, right? And so a lot of that really relies on growing the right team. And so one of the challenges that I feel like has a lot of ebbs and flows is putting the right people in the right seat. And
There it
that
is.
takes, oh, probably, we knew it would take time, but it's a really dynamic thing. It involves a lot of your mind, your body, your spirit, because you're building a relationship, you're training. And if you're not ready to train, you might be stretching yourself mentally to get better. You're also having to learn how to be a teacher to that person, and then defining the role, and then separating that from the person, and being willing to plug and play and put people in, and making sure you're taking care of that person as you plug and play with them. We want to be super respectful, and we want people to have autonomy here, and that means creating a structure where that can happen. And that has been probably the most eye-opening experience to me, probably the thing that has stretched and pulled me the most. It's something I thought I knew, it's something I'd studied, I'd been a part of rebranding, so I thought, oh, I know how to do this. This has felt next level to me, probably because there was already a team in place, and there's so much intention here. Like, we are just so blessed with really talented people. And so one of my, I say challenges, but it motivates me. I really like a good challenge, is how do I keep them happy? How do I keep them growing? How do I keep them engaged? And that's probably questions that I could chew on for months.
Yeah, you're right. When you talk about the energy, mind, body, spirit, it can be draining trying to facilitate all that, no doubt. How is your team broken up? How many people do you have? What different seats are being filled currently?
So we are a small but mighty firm. We've got 8
Yeah,
people on board,
nice.
and there's all, I mean, we've got web developers, graphic designers, social media management team, operations team, and the leadership between Carolee and I.
Oh,
And
that's
we
awesome.
also, that's the core CMC marketing company. We also have some very trusted business partners that collaborate on projects. They do things we specifically don't do. So they've opened up doors where we could take on bigger projects, because we can still care for the client, give them the same CMC experience, but we're also taking on someone outside of the company to do more.
Okay, so that's something that I don't know. I don't know a lot about. How does that work? So if there's a bigger company and they might have a big project where you guys are a piece of the bigger project. Did I say that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because
Okay.
we do, like I mentioned, we do websites, we do organic social media and content management, we do brand consulting. But things we don't do are paid ads. And a lot of companies are doing paid ads. We specifically didn't want to drive in that lane. We also don't do ongoing SEO work. We do on page for website builds, but that's a whole other maintenance program. That's a lane we also don't drive in. So, I mean, things in that space, the way we work, there's lots of ways you could do it. A lot of people do white label. Um, I don't necessarily like the management aspect. When you do a white label, you're managing it, right? And I want
What's
to
white label
stay.
mean?
So white label will mean if I were doing that, we would say, yes, CMC offers this. And I would project manage from the front. And the client would only feel that CMC is taking care of them. But on the back end, I'd be correlating with a contractor or another company to actually fulfill the services. And I've done that. I've been the white labeler, I've done the white labeling. I prefer transparency. I want to only drive in my lane, and I know that. That, to your point, you got to get to know you. And even as a company, the thing that we're creating as CMC between all of us is its own little entity. And so, in order to protect that, in order to just be CMC and be able to stand firm and say, hey, we're here and we are who we are, and we don't need to drive in another lane. We don't need to step on toes. So for us, it was a lot more aligned to say, we have a great partner. We're going to pull them in for this piece of your project because they're great at what they do, and they're going to be in the client communications, and they're going to be collaborating with any piece of CMC they need to and the client directly, and everybody's just working together in collaboration.
Does it ever get muddied on who gets paid for what, or is that all broken down? You guys are able to communicate that pretty
Oh
clearly
yeah,
throughout the
always decided
process.
up front. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always decided up
Okay.
front, and usually it's whatever is cleanest for the client experience, because that's my personal obsession. I like to make it over the top, so delicious they can't stop sitting down at my table. They want more and more and more and more. That's
Got
the
it.
goal.
Yeah, no, it should be. Why is it so important for companies to stay in their lane and have a clear message?
Well, as we've said in the group, niches get riches, right? So part of it is you want to be really good at what you're good at. So it really helps from a business standpoint to be clear on what you offer and be great at what you offer so that you can deliver a good job and you can get referrals, because you're going to do the work anyway. So why be mediocre? Do what you do really well and own that space so that you can do quality work and get more quality work from your quality work. Just makes sense from a simplicity standpoint, also from a branding standpoint. If you're a bunch of things to a bunch of people, you're never going to be the expert, and your value proposition gets muddied and it goes down.
Hmm,
So
that's
that's a
good.
big shot in the foot if you want to decide to be all things to all people. It's like, no, do what you do well. And that's probably why you see people branching off into other brands, because it's not, the confusing piece of that is like, well, what if I want to grow? What if, as you should, what if it makes organic sense for your company to expand its services and own another piece versus giving away business? And usually that's the breaking point for a brand is, okay, we've given so many referrals, maybe we should own this. Or we've brought in these outside vendors and they're not holding our standards. So we're going to enter into a new space because we know we can protect our brand of quality and service that other people aren't providing. But sometimes that also means that's why people will split. That's why you have maybe a parent brand, like think of a hotel brand. You have different levels because they're targeting different people.
That's good. That's good. So when you come on and somebody hires you, what are some of the initial things that you're able to coach them up on that, man, they just had no idea what they were missing out? Are there anything that seems to be pretty consistent with a majority of people?
Very much so, because what we do, which I hope everybody does with their clients, really, is we have a couple of very long strategy sessions up front. So even in our discovery meetings before someone signs on as a client, we're doing research. We do a pre-sales call questionnaire. So even before we sit down for our discovery calls, we're doing a questionnaire to find out, what are you all about? What is your brand? What's your vision? What's your budget? What are the things? And so we're doing a lot of discovery before we ever sit down. And then we're usually doing at least an hour long meeting in our before someone even becomes a client. And then when they sign with us, we do basically a deep dive into their whole business. It's a 90-minute session. And we're often getting to know them. It's beyond even the why. We're always cracking that open, but we're also really looking like under the hood of their business. Who are they? Who are they as a company? How did they start? Where do they see themselves? How do your customers describe you? We ask all of those questions. And the thing that always comes up for people is they are actually taking the time. So many people are not pulling back and really thinking about their business. And it's such an intimate thing for someone. That's another baby for them always. So when they pull back and they really think about, well, what's my journey and where do I want to go? And what does this mean to me? What does this mean to my customers? It's always a really revealing session, and it's always really, really special. And that heart moment is vital to everything we do with that client moving forward, because we paint the whole project with that heartfelt moment so that when other people see our work, they feel that person's story, even if it's on a phone.
So Donald Miller talks about in building a story brand, and then you have. So I listen a lot to his podcast, Business Made Simple, and also the Marketing Made Simple, Dr.
Yeah.
JJ Peterson. Have you listened to that one too? And
Yeah.
they use the phrase hero maker quite a bit, and it talks about how Donald Miller always talks about how the client is the hero and the provider, the service provider, the business, you're just the guide.
You're
So,
Yoda.
yeah, exactly. So you have to be able to be the guide for the customer while also telling your story at the same time, and putting yourself out there, but really coming with your hands up, like, here I am ready to serve you in this way. How do you guys coach people through that process? I mean, you kind of already answered it, I guess. I just wanted to ask it in that context. But um,
Well, I
the
appreciate
first
that.
step, yeah, the first step you said was getting to their heart. But then, yeah, I just want to put that
Well,
out there.
and I appreciate you asking, because they are different things, right? We open them up, and it's a delicate thing. When you do that with someone, you have to take a lot of care to make sure that they know that that's a space where they can open up, that they understand what you're going to do with that information, because it is personal. Even though it's about their business, it's meaningful, it's deep to them. So we always treat that with kindness and care, and we will let them know, hey, we're doing this because we want people to know you, and we want to be able to craft how people experience you. And we want them to have the same kind of moment we have here. Maybe not as intimate, but we want them to get a sense of who you really are. And so we'll come back to that point throughout the whole project. We're always talking about, we will come back to the core pieces of that story and that moment over and over and over again. We'll say, hey, remember when we talked about this? Here's how we're implementing it in this piece of your website. Here's how it shows up in your brand logo. It's why we chose these colors, because you talked about this feeling that you wanted. So here's your color palette to speak to that. So we're always tying it in so that they know not only did we get it, but we understand how to share it appropriately so that other people can experience it too.
So it's not just a 10,000 word document with all the words and their why and their whole background. That's not what we're talking about here.
Never, never. It's and we almost rarely formally document it. We record those calls, but the feeling, the whole point is it's supposed to imprint on us. We want it to imprint on our graphic designer, on our website developer, on our content development team. We want everyone to know. And that's part of what we do even in our agency. We tell our clients stories to each other. We live them with them. We
Mm.
walk that journey with them. We support them afterwards. We're always promoting our clients, what they do, new websites we're launching, pieces of their experience, all of it. And we walk that same walk. As we're growing our agency and our business, we're also sharing it. We're also thinking of ways, how can we translate the things that mean so much to us and show the outside world, bring them in a little bit, bring them along.
Oh, that's good. That takes a higher level of um, coherency amongst the team. What do you guys do to make sure that you are communicating well, that you're all on the same page, that the different departments are moving forward together?
Tactical level, we're on Slack, right?
Okay.
We lead by example. So we're on Slack all the time. We have our clean channels. We've got client channels. We've got internal channels. We're on every day. We all know who's working and when and what they're working on. I do want to share a pivotal piece that we implemented a couple 3 months ago that I've noticed makes a huge difference. Was we have an all hands call once a week where we see each other, because
Nice.
we do have overseas team members. So we're across 7 time zones,
Whoa.
and yeah, it's so we have one call at a time that works for everybody, pretty much. We make the time, and it's a chance. We use that call to see each other. We use that call to share what are the wins and the projects we're working on. We do brags about each other, where if I heard something good from a client, I'm telling the whole team, and we're cheering for each other, and we're sharing openly what failed this week and what we're doing about it, what we learned. So it is a mind share. It's not just a team meeting, but we're really, really intentional. And I've noticed a lot more collaboration happening. And that, to me, that was one meeting where we can share eyeballs, changed everything.
Yeah, no, that's good. Last summer, just about a year ago, I read Traction by Gino
Oh my
Wickman and
God, I'm
really
obsessed with that
got
book.
so I've read it. Well, I have a copy and I've made notes, but I've listened to it on Audible at least 5 times, and
Yeah.
I've studied the whole library. And we've been self-implementing EOS on the team ever since. But I have an EOS implementer, Jeff Schaefer, on the podcast, and we kind of break it down. But and it's just been so huge for me to have those tools like the people
Mhm.
analyzer, the accountability chart, the
Yeah.
concept of understanding GWC, gets it, wants it, and has the capacity. And the
Yes.
level, when you said that, the level 10 meetings, every Friday we have our level 10 meeting,
Yep.
and we're not always good at
That's where it
keeping it
came
to,
from.
we're not always good at keeping it to 90 minutes.
We're not doing as deep of a dive. We split
Okay.
ours a little bit. So the team call is really about things, because it's everybody in every department. Not everything is relevant for every department. So we keep our all hands team call as something that talks more high level about wins, failures, and client projects. And then we've got breakout sessions. So we have leadership meeting, we have content meeting, we have one just for the podcast. So
Mm,
we've been more dynamic and nimble with those, because I did the level 10s in my last firm. We self implemented EOS also,
nice.
and it was intense.
It is. It's hard to self-implement. I'm excited for when I can actually bring on an implementer to do it for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few more like lines of questions that I want to hit you with because I want to respect your
Okay.
time. First, what makes a good podcast?
Um, I'd say content. It's all about content,
So
right?
I can have good
Are you
content, but
excited, and is it relevant?
my so I can still have a good podcast even if my mic is, now this mic is good. I'm very proud of this mic. All my future episodes are about to sound really good, but my first 10 are thumbs down, trash, at least in the audio. But the content is
Yeah.
great. So you're telling me that I can still be qualified as a good podcast, even though content is great, but the audio might not be there.
Audio's a close second, right? So
Okay, there we
because
go.
it's the same. To me, they're very similar, but I don't care if it's clear and what you're saying is hot garbage. But I will listen through something that's a little bit lower quality just because I love what you're saying.
Mm,
So that's the reason we've got just that top ranking is, do you have something relevant and valuable to the audience, right? And I think that can sometimes be, you said, "Oh, I just started mine," right? You're like, "Oh, I didn't have a direction." But I think you did. Otherwise you wouldn't have started. And obviously it's evolved, and I'm guessing it's evolved kind of in the same direction. Maybe it wasn't like a, this is what I'm going to do, and you could write it on paper and you could stamp it, but something was clear in your heart and in your mind because you started.
that's
So
a fair assessment.
so most of the time, if you're thinking about starting it, it's probably because you've gotten enough feedback from the marketplace that you know who you're talking to and what you want to say. And as
Mm.
long as you know those things, what comes out of your mouth and how you develop, it'll lead you towards the path of value. Value can be added over time. There's such a thing as like capital, right? You got to build some capital. The only way to do that is do it. And yeah,
That's good.
audio. That's why we chose to record in a studio with the Rode mics. Like we
Y'all's
went
audio
high end.
sounds great. I'm telling you what, your audio is good. The first thing I was like, oh man, these ladies are on point. And I think for me, it was more so defining the avatar of who I was talking to,
Yeah.
rather than okay, what is the mission statement of this show? Once I realized, like, okay, who am I talking to? How can my experience really feed into this group? And how can I
Mm.
create a following? And once I had that down, it was like, okay, I just need to go. And I
Yeah.
said in a
Yeah.
previous episode that it took 5 years to make the first episode, and then
Wow.
second episode took me like 3 hours. But it took forever to get started. And now
Yeah.
I'm 2 months in. I've got some really exciting people coming on, and yeah, I mean, you guys have a cool dynamic. You have a cool story. Your relationship is great, but you also bring on guests to your podcast. Who are you guys looking for when you want to bring on somebody to come talk and speak into a specific topic?
So we specifically have been trying to find people who are actually even further ahead than we are. We want people who've been in it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who've walked the walk. And the most important element of our guest has to be that they are willing to be open and actually share the true story of what's happened. Because that's who we still are. Whether we're on the podcast or we're at CMC, we're storytellers, and we know the real nuggets are when people are willing to open up, be vulnerable, share the story. So we're trying to find people that inspire us, who are further ahead that we can personally learn from, and then make sure that there's someone who are willing to just sit down and have kind of a coffee talk of, hey, what happened? How did it happen? Because so many people are like, I slept in my car and now I'm a millionaire. And we're like, well, what happened in between? Can you be more specific?
Yeah.
And we don't
Oh, that's
we
good.
don't want people to be sold the dream. I think that really harms so many people. Is you get sold some kind of dream and people will romanticize struggle, and life will give you struggle no matter what. It's life. That's why it's hard. It would be boring if it wasn't. But it doesn't have to be that hard, and you don't have to make it harder. And Carolee and I got frustrated feeling like you really get sold a romantic vision and it deeply underprepares you for the emotional strife of building up your mindset.
That happens so often in just life in general, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
especially in business ownership. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm big on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of, especially in the franchise consultant space, you get people who
Hmm.
are literally selling dreams and systems and businesses. And the rhetoric can often be, just buy this, and now you have this perfect lifestyle, and this business will provide, and your worst day as a business owner is better than your best day working for somebody else. And oh
That's
man, that
not
is
true at
the
all.
farthest from my
That's not true at all.
experience.
Oh my
That's the
God.
farthest
That's
from my experience. I don't know
I
about you, but
We talk about that feeling all the time. It will strip you of every unnecessary habit and thought process you have ever had in your body. And you better be ready for that.
yeah, no doubt. I think it's good to really get into the nitty gritty. And I mean, what you said is that's the essence of Streetwise, finding somebody who is ahead of you in the process, pulling them in, and just trying to squeeze some mentorship out of them, and I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. And podcasting, it's funny because doing the networking stuff, and especially on LinkedIn, you have access to a lot of high caliber individuals. And if you
Yeah.
ask some executive, hey, you want to get some coffee? Can I buy you lunch? You're probably not getting a response. But if you say, hey, I got a podcast and I would love to interview you and put you on this platform and kind of put out what you're doing, I don't know about you, but I've gotten my response rate has increased drastically with
Yep.
this in my back pocket. So I think it's really cool. What are you the most excited about right now, from business wise, personal wise, just like the team and what you guys are building? What's going on?
So business wise, First, the piece of our podcast I'm most excited about is the community we're building. So we have our Facebook group up and we started to invite people, and it's quiet right now, but I can see so clearly what it's going to be in 2 years. And I'm really, really excited about having a space that will facilitate those connections among the people that need it the most, and creating a space where we can have more offline conversations, because I love the conversations that happen in the studio. And I'm so excited to see how that translates into a whole group of people who are equally as interested and open to what we're talking about and learning and connecting. So I'm excited I feel like those possibilities are endless for the podcast
Yeah,
community.
no doubt.
Um, for CMC Marketing Company, I'm genuinely excited about the team that we're hiring. We're still hiring more, and we're really so lucky to have so much talent. I learned so much from them. So I'm professionally really excited for the growth that's happening in my mental capacity, in our team's capacity, and creatively. I'm really excited for the projects we're going to get to be a part of. Some are in the works, some are about to be in the works. I just know we're going to be able to stand at the end of the year, we're going to be able to point to a whole portfolio of just awesome stories, awesome work, and I love being able to brag about my team. So I'm excited about that opportunity coming up
No
because
doubt.
that's going to be happening, and personally, um, just happy to be producing. I'm personally happy when I'm really productive, and
Yeah.
I'm really blessed to be in a place where I can use everything I've learned and grow even more. I'm with a really great team, and because that is so abundant and stable in its growth and chaos, it's right. It's happening. I can stand on it. I can see a future in it. And so, personally, I'm most excited just to see what I become through all of it.
That's good. Progress, progress, progress.
Progress over perfection, baby.
Progress over perfection. That's right.
Yeah.
And well, I'm gonna gush on y'all one more time because I almost forgot. Who the heck is writing y'all's episode descriptions? Oh my goodness. Those are the most thought out in detail. They make me feel so insecure about my episode. My episode descriptions are like 3 sentences, find them on LinkedIn, and then listen to the show and go. Listen to the next one.
Oh my
You guys
god. They
have, that's amazing.
That is our content coordinator. Her name
Okay.
is Melissa. I cannot wait to tell her that you are gushing.
Kudos,
And
Melissa.
that is
Golly.
from her heart.
Okay.
I think she's our number one fan, actually, which is so heartwarming to me. I didn't even know she would be an ideal audience, but having her feedback has helped us get better as we design season 2. We're going to start recording season 2 next month already. And we'll be done launching season 1 in October. And she has been our biggest fan, and it shows. She writes those notes.
That's amazing, and that just speaks into what we said earlier about having the avatar. Because if you can create the content, knowing who your biggest fan is, she's just one person that happens to be in the team. But there's so many people that demographic that you can reach if you know who you're catering to. So, man, that's really cool. That's exciting, and yeah, kudos to you guys. I mean, I'm just looking at it now. I mean, that's y'all are killing the game. How do you? Last question specifically to the like around the podcast. I'm just curious when you create a season. I was talking to my friend who also is starting a podcast, and he's thinking through the seasonality aspect. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
gotten that far yet. How do you break up a season? And
So we do batch recording, and we recorded all of our episodes. And then as we listened to them, edited them, wrote the show notes for them, we designed them based on what we felt painted the biggest story. And then we had a host only episode where we kind of take, well, what was the overarching feeling of the whole season? And it can be kind of difficult because that means you're technically not doing things in a season. We're recording at a different time than we're releasing it. right? And we're taking promo pictures and stuff. So we had to think about that, where we almost had to be neutral in the things that the pictures that we're taking, and we had to make sure that our content wasn't, we didn't specifically talk about holidays or time of year. We were really careful about that because we wanted this content to be evergreen as a
Mm.
podcast. So we took it, that's how we did it. We batch recorded, designed the season, put them in a very specific order, and we decided on a release date. We personally wanted to do a little bit slower, just to be able to give time for promotion, because we wanted, same thing, we wanted quality, we wanted time for people to see and promote to their different audiences. And so that's how we did it. In season 2, we aren't starting our season with here's what we want the season to be all about. We're going for the guests that we want, and then we're finding that there's a thread that happens when we're done recording. So we're kind of letting the theme of the season come to
Build
us
on
as we
itself. Yeah.
book it. Yeah.
Man, that is, there's a lot for me to think about because I'm not doing it that way. I am flying by the seat of my pants. I am recording when I can, spur of the moment. Hey, this would be a good episode to talk to this person. This came up and I just did a post about this. So how about we throw this into an episode? I kind of am though, because I have like 6 episodes that I'm sitting on that I'm just putting them out. So I don't know. I'm just, everything I do is raw and rough in the beginning, and just figuring it out as I go. So
That is the way that it is, though. No matter how it looks to other people, right? Like, I wouldn't necessarily know that. You know it because you feel like, oh, it should be different. But I'm not so convinced about that. You're putting out content that you know is valuable to the people that you're trying to reach. You're going through the motions because you learn probably a little bit of something every single time you do an episode. And like I said, a theme appears for us because we batch record. We only have the privilege of batch recording because we have a whole team behind us. It's the only reason we could do that. Otherwise, we would have to be going in and just recording when we could, how we could, doing whatever we could. We have a privilege being a marketing agency that we have creatives available to us. And, we came from experience, so we knew what we wanted this time, and we wanted it to be different. But it still appears, right? We do the work, and we do that batch, and we have a whole season, and then a theme appears. And I'm guessing it's probably the same for you. I bet if you pulled back, you realize, yeah, a theme appears. Maybe it's not right for you to do seasons yet. Maybe it makes more sense from a branding perspective to stay consistent and post what's relevant, because that's what gives you traction. And the more traction you have, the better people you can reach, and the more audience you gain, and the more value you provide.
I can resonate with that. I appreciate that sentiment. Yeah, that makes me feel better because I think it's true. I have an idea of who I want to go after and who I want to bring in and the story that I want to tell. But in order to be able to reach out and have the credibility, I felt like I needed some work in my back pocket and I needed to work out a lot of the kinks. And it's given me the ability to tell the story of, hey, if you want to do something, just go. Don't wait. Just get it out, get it going, start, progress over perfection. Don't wait. And yeah, so it's just a journey. Is there anything else you would maybe, and we can wrap up after this, but I want to know how people can reach you guys and get in contact. And then is there anything possibly that, was left unsaid that, somebody who's early on in their journey, or maybe they've solopreneur or just running their business and they might need help and not know they need help, how would you encourage that person?
Yes. So you can absolutely reach me. I'm Melanie Rice across all the platforms except Instagram. I'm the real Melanie Rice on Instagram, mostly so that Carolee can make fun of me.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Those are kind of the homes that I live in.
Sweet.
And CMC Marketing Company, that's who we are, handles across the board, except LinkedIn, they made us, it's weird. It's cmcmarketing.co.
Okay.
So that's the weird one, is LinkedIn. And of course, cmcmarketing.co is our website.
Cool. Okay. Now for the encouragement
That's how they
piece.
find us.
Yeah. I'll edit that and I'll
Now,
switch it. Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
make my question sound a little more succinct.
uh, so the second question you asked is, what final advice might I give to someone who's struggling or doesn't know they're struggling or what to do? The best piece of advice I could say is ask someone, wow, how did you do that? And listen really, really closely. And that also means be brave and ask someone that maybe you think you have no right to talk to. Just be genuine and ask the question, because that will get you so far. And
Amen.
the
Amen.
caveat to that is pay close attention to who you're following. I followed the wrong people early on. You follow someone who's glossy and you think that's success. And study to make sure it's the kind of success you really want. What is their whole lifestyle? What's their company culture actually like? Not just the story they tell, the suit they wear, the branding they have online, but what do people who work with them say about them? Do they have the family lifestyle that you want for yourself? Then ask, that's amazing. How'd you do that?
That is huge. Yeah, you've given me a lot to work with here. I appreciate you. This has been a great conversation. I hope you feel the same.
Here.
That
Yes,
would
my
be
big question
awesome.
is like when you're gonna put it out, how you promote, especially where on your platforms, what's your vernacular, what's your handle, what's your hashtags, because I like to cross promote all the time. I think that's the way it
Mm,
is. So definitely have lots of ideas about how to do that because that's kind of what we obsess on day in and day out is how to create that web of promotion for what we're doing. So I want to be able to do that because this is a special opportunity for me to be able to talk about it, the podcast, the agency.
yeah, no
So
doubt. And I wanted to,
let
that's,
me know your
I,
promo plan. If you don't have
sure.
one, I'll give you my ideas, and
All
I
right.
just want to make sure we're collaborating really tightly so I can pump this out everywhere.
All right. That's really cool. Yeah. I'll do that. It's a lot of, I don't want to say this. I'm getting better at being consistent with what I am, like the specific hashtags that I'm using. But again, I don't necessarily fully understand the philosophy and the right ways to do it. And so I'm sure there's a lot of tips that you can provide for me.
Yeah, my brain's all
But
yours.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and end it. But don't hang up yet because
Okay.
it has to like upload. But I'll just say this part. All right, Melanie, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. This was great, and I'm very excited to boost you guys, CMC Marketing, and the Be More Mindful podcast. Check these guys out. They've got a lot of good stuff going on. Melanie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Matthew.